Welcome to the Cheating and Love Tales channel. I don't regret it, Grace Daniels says, looking me in the eye. She's standing in our living room with a small cardboard box clutched to her chest, the flaps sealed with duct tape. This box is a trifling thing, but somehow it contains the entire shape of my broken life. I watch her, my mind stuck between disbelief and a furious sort of calm. My heart hammers in my ears, telling me this is real. My knuckles turn white at my sides. In the corner of the room, daylight slants through the half-drawn blinds, scattering shapes across the carpet. The kids are away at my mother's place. Thank God. I can't imagine them seeing their mother like this, or me like this, or the two of us locked in a standoff that feels more like a slow-motion car crash than a conversation. It's ridiculous, but the only thing I can focus on is the fact that the box is taped shut with cheap duct tape, not the good kind, the dull gray tape that barely adheres. There's something almost comical about it, like it's a half-hearted attempt at hiding what's inside. And maybe that's perfect, because everything about this moment feels half-hearted, glued together by desperation and lies. I'm Mark Daniels, and I can't remember the last time I felt truly safe in my own home. But I remember last night, rummaging through the living room closet, coming across a battered shoebox filled with old pictures. Pictures I couldn't explain. Pictures she'd hidden behind a cardboard backing of a family photo frame. And I remember the playlist on my phone. Nighttime, something she created on Spotify and invited me to collaborate on. Songs about longing, regret, secrets whispered in the dark. Except I never asked for it. And I never wanted any more secrets. She stands there, shoulders set, with that box held tight like a shield. I don't regret it, she repeats, her voice colder this time, as if pressing a bruise. My name is Mark Daniels. I'm the man who's supposed to provide, to protect. I'm also the man who discovered that my wife, Grace Daniels, has been sleeping with Ethan Walters. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I've known for a while, though my brain refused to process it. When a man is taught all his life to be strong, to keep it together, to never crumble, he learns to bury the obvious signs. But there's a difference between suspecting it and confronting it. I breathe out slowly. Open the box. Grace, let me see what you're taking. She flinches, just barely. They're just personal things, old letters, some of my clothes. I didn't want to leave them scattered around, Mark. Her voice is unsteady, though she's trying to sound bold. She's not an accomplished liar, though she's had plenty of time to practice lately. That pang of black humor stabs me right in the chest. She can learn how to cheat on me, but she can't lie worth a damn. I step forward, the box the only thing between us. Open it. She gives me a look, fear and defiance swirling in her green eyes. Grace Daniels from Charlotte, North Carolina, who used to rock our children to sleep while I watched from the door, who loves the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, who curls her hair for special occasions, and does that small, shy smile when she's pleased with herself. Or used to. The woman I'm seeing now is unfamiliar. She sets the box on the couch and peels the tape away with trembling fingers. I watch her, my eyes flicking to every detail. The ragged edges of the tape, the blush creeping up her neck, the tension in her jaw. Once it's open, she steps aside, letting me look. It's mostly clothes, a diary with a floral cover, a battered paperback novel, a few receipts from a restaurant near downtown Los Angeles, someplace I'd never been, a plastic photo envelope with a date scrawled on the front in ink. I pick up one receipt. You went there with him. She licks her lips, trying to find words. It was just lunch. And the photos in that envelope, just pictures. She presses her lips together, silent. That's answer enough. I drop the receipt back into the box and close the lid. Then I gesture for her to sit. She doesn't. I can sense her fight or flight mechanism kicking in. Maybe she wants to run upstairs or rush out the door. I let the silence stretch, pushing her to the edge. Finally, I clear my throat. Grace Daniels, I say, using her full name, calmly, as if we're in a courtroom. Sit down. She exhales and sits on the edge of the couch, legs crossed at the ankles, gaze flicking to the side, as if to see if she still has an escape route. I remain standing, arms folded. You don't regret it? I echo, my voice tightening. So explain that to me, in words I can understand. Because, apparently, I'm behind in this conversation. A flicker of anger crosses her face, or maybe it's guilt. She tries to speak, but no words come out at first. Then she just blurts, I couldn't keep living like this, Mark. I tried to talk to you, but it was like you had walls around you. You're always busy or exhausted or worried about the future, about money, about everything but me, about us. That stings, because I know some of it is true, but it doesn't justify cheating. It doesn't justify Ethan Walters, the man she let into my house, or at least into our lives. That's not an explanation, I say sharply. It's an excuse. She bows her head, staring at the floor. I see her shoulders trembling, and a part of me, some leftover piece of love, wants to comfort her, but I stay where I am. Because men don't cry, men don't bend, and apparently men don't get to feel heartbreak. If we do, we're told to shut up about it, bury it deeper, my father once told me. A man stands tall, no matter what. Right now, I'd like to find him and tell him I'm drowning while standing tall. Grace looks up. You want me to spell it out? Fine. I fell in love with him. Stop, I say, raising my hand. I can't hear that word. Not now. The adrenaline surges, and my heart's pounding so loudly I think I might black out. Just tell me how long. She swallows. 3 months. I grit my teeth. How many times? She shakes her head, uncertain how to answer that. A few times. We met for coffee or lunch, and yes, her voice falters. We slept together. There it is. She's admitted it. The bizarre part is how calm I feel, like my whole world has collapsed, but I'm watching from some numb vantage point. When did I stop mattering? I ask. She blinks. You've always mattered. I almost laugh, a bitter, humorless sound. That's quite a statement from someone who's been sneaking around with Ethan Walters. Hearing his name on my tongue makes me want to punch something. My fists curl, but I keep them at my sides. I keep remembering a little detail. Ethan has an easy grin and a surfer's tan. I found pictures of him with Grace at some beach. The sunlight was in her hair, and she was smiling like I haven't seen in years. That memory alone is more painful than any physical blow. She says nothing. The silence grows thick. I press on, determined to get to the bottom of this. Tell me about him. Who is he to you? She scrubs her hands over her face. He's a photographer. He teaches part-time at a community college. We met through the community center where I work. He was doing a photo project for one of our events. I nod slowly, letting each detail sink in. The man is younger than me, or at least younger in spirit, charismatic. The kind of guy who is not pinned down by a 9-to-5. I feel a jolt of something akin to jealousy, or maybe contempt. Grace's voice wavers. At first, we just talked. That's it. He listened, Mark. He asked me questions about my life, about my childhood, my dreams. And before I knew it, we started. She shakes her head, tears in her eyes. I didn't mean for it to happen. But I don't regret it. I bite the inside of my cheek so hard I taste copper. This entire conversation is surreal. You said you tried to talk to me. She nods, still crying. But you never had time. I squeeze my eyes shut, remembering the nights I spent hunched over my laptop, finishing reports for work, or taking calls after hours from clients who needed last-minute solutions. Remembering how she stood in the doorway, wanting to say something, but always turning away when she saw how tense I was. The worst part is, I don't remember a single time I asked her how she felt, really felt. It still doesn't excuse betrayal. Get up, I say quietly. She stands, uncertain. I move to the kitchen table, and I sit down, gesturing for her to do the same across from me. This is where we always used to do our monthly budgeting, or help the kids with homework. Now it feels like an interrogation chamber. She sits, placing the box on the table beside her. She's hugging herself. She looks small, sad, and yet there's a spark of resolve in her eyes. She said she doesn't regret it, and I believe her. That might be the worst dagger of all. I lean forward, resting my elbows on the table. I have questions, Grace Daniels, and you're going to answer them. She exhales shakily. Go ahead. What do you want from me now? I ask, voice thin. She shakes her head. I don't know. That's not good enough. She stares at me, eyes brimming with tears, but her jaw sets. I'm not sure I want this marriage anymore. Mark. My breath catches. There it is, the bomb dropped. Why? I ask, carefully controlling the tremor in my voice. Her gaze flickers to the window, and she seems to gather her thoughts. Because this house is full of silence. Even when you're in the room, it's like you're already gone, lost in your own world. She pauses, picking at the sleeve of her blouse. At first, Ethan was just a friendly face. But the more time I spent with him, the more I realized what I was missing here. And what's that? She purses her lips. Affection. Attention. Passion. Just feeling like a woman again. Feeling alive. I swallow hard. My throat hurts, and I notice my hands are shaking beneath the table. And he gave you all that. She nods slowly, tears sliding down her cheeks. I look away, trying to breathe. My mind replays the photos I found behind that cardboard backing. Pictures of them locked in an embrace near some cafe, their foreheads touching like lovers in a cheap movie. My stomach churns. Suddenly, I stand, the chair scraping the floor. We're done here. I can't even finish the sentence. I walk to the window, push the blinds aside, and stare at the suburban street. My reflection in the glass looks older, more haunted than I remember. The next-door neighbor's dog barks at a passing car. Normal life continues out there, while my life is unraveling in here. In that moment, I recall the moment I found them, or rather, how I found out. A flash of memory. Me in my car, the engine running, my phone lighting up with a notification from Spotify. A new playlist created by Grace. Songs about secret trysts and heartbreak. Something inside me twisted. I confronted her that night, in a shaky voice. What is this about? She played dumb, called it a silly project. But I knew. Because earlier that same day, I'd discovered the hidden photos. Sometimes the mind tries to protect us from the truth, but I couldn't hide from it anymore. Behind me, Grace exhales, and I hear her stand up as well. I sense her approach, cautious, unsure. Then I feel the warmth of her hand on my back. I stiffen. Mark, she whispers. I'm sorry. An unexpected laugh escapes my lips, low and rough. A black humor creeping in. Right. You're sorry, but you don't regret it. She doesn't respond, which is an answer in itself. I turn to face her. My eyes flick across her features, her trembling lips, the tears, the weariness etched in lines around her eyes that I never bothered to notice. Where is he now? Who? I tilt my head with a pointed look. She hesitates. He's at his studio, probably. Or maybe he's teaching. He has a class on Wednesday afternoons. I don't know, Mark. We're not together all the time. How many times have you been together, physically? She bites her lower lip, and tears pool in her eyes again. Enough. My jaw tightens. That single word stabs me deeper than anything else she could have said. I rub my neck, the tension almost unbearable. Did you ever bring him here, to this house? Her silence says it all. You brought him into my home, I say quietly. I can't look at her. My vision blurs with red anger. Every muscle in my body wants to lash out, but I choke it back. I'm supposed to be strong, stoic, in control. I wonder if she took him into our bedroom. If they laughed at how clueless I was. If they made love in the bed where we once tried for our second child. No tears come, just this searing emptiness. She starts to say something, but I cut her off with a sharp gesture. Stop. I can't hear any more of this. We stand there, the box on the table like some grotesque artifact of our marriage's demise. Finally, Grace gathers it and heads for the stairs. I'll pack a few more things. Then She doesn't finish. She disappears upstairs, leaving me alone in the living room, the entire space suffocating me with memories. I think about the time she and I slow dance here after dinner, when the kids were at a friend's house. We spun in lazy circles to an old jazz record, and she laughed in that soft way of hers. Where did that version of us go? I walk to the kitchen counter and find my phone. My finger hovers over the nighttime playlist. I want to delete it, but something inside me can't. I need to keep it there, like a scar, a reminder of what's happened. My gaze drifts to the family photo on the wall. Beneath the frame was where I discovered the other photos. The family snapshot is from a beach vacation 3 years ago. Grace in a straw hat, the kids playing with sandcastles, me grinning in the sun. A perfect lie. I yank the photo off the wall, flip it around, and peel away the cardboard backing. Sure enough, the hidden pictures are gone. She must have moved them somewhere else, or maybe she put them in that envelope in the box. My hands shake as I think about them. Images of Grace and Ethan Walters together, eyes locked, lips pressed close, bodies angled with desire. My phone buzzes in my hand, jolting me. It's a text from my boss, something about a quarterly sales report. I let it go to voicemail, because my boss can wait. I can't handle normal right now. I sink into a kitchen chair, head in my hands, and let out a breath. My chest is tight, and I can't cry, even though I can feel the tears trying to form. Men don't cry, right? We just break inside quietly. The memory surfaces. A month ago, I came home early from the office, and Grace wasn't expecting me. I heard muffled laughter in the living room. By the time I walked in, she was standing by the coffee table, phone in hand, blushing. She said it was just a friend from the center, someone texting her about an event. I believed her, idiot that I am. Now everything fits together in sickening clarity. My mind flickers with images. Late-night phone calls she answered in the hallway, text messages she hid under the covers, the way she seemed to glow after certain afternoons away. That glow, I realize, was him. I clench my fists and exhale. Then I hear the floor creak behind me. Grace is standing there again, the box at her feet. She's changed into a casual sweater and jeans, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looks more like the mother of our children than the seductress of another man. I feel the weight of her gaze. Mark, she begins quietly. I'm going to stay at a friend's place tonight. I think we both need space. I nod numbly. So that's it. You're leaving. She presses her lips together. Just for a little while. To think. To figure out what we're going to do. I almost laugh again. That same bitter edge. Where do the kids fit in your grand plan? Her eyes flash with pain. They're my children too. I'm not abandoning them, Mark. She stops. Maybe she realizes how inadequate her words sound. I dig my palms into the edge of the table. Fine. Go. But I want to talk again tomorrow. I can't handle this half-truth thing anymore. She nods, tears tracking down her cheeks, and picks up the box. She opens her mouth to say something, but no words come out. Finally, she turns and walks to the door. A moment later, she's gone. I sit there in the house, the silence enveloping me. It's so quiet, I can hear the clock ticking. For a while, I don't move. I just replay her words in my head. I don't regret it. My phone buzzes again, another text from work. I almost crush the thing in my hand. Then I catch a glimpse of the time. Dusk is settling. My stomach growls, but I can't eat. My mind is swirling with black humor, telling me, well, Mark, you sure do know how to pick 'em. Maybe you should have listened when she said she was lonely. Then that voice shifts to something darker. No, this is her fault. She could have told you the truth. She could have left with dignity instead of sleeping around. Somewhere between these two extremes, I remember the kids. They'll be back tomorrow, expecting their parents to be normal. Do I lie to them? Hide the truth? Or do I pretend everything's fine, burying my pain like a real man should? I'm not sure, so I just sit there as daylight fades, feeling more helpless than I've ever felt in my life. That night, I barely sleep. I wander from room to room, noticing everything Grace left behind. A paperback on the nightstand, a stray earring on the bathroom sink, a half-finished cup of coffee in the kitchen. Traces of a wife who might not be my wife anymore. Around 2 in the morning, I find myself rummaging through the closet again. I find the shoebox with the old pictures of Grace and me, from happier days. I flip through them, as if searching for some sign that this was inevitable, that I was always going to lose her. But all I see is a smiling couple in love, naive in their hopes for the future. It's after 3 when I drift into a fitful doze on the couch. I dream of the beach, the one in the photo I discovered, but in my dream, Grace is always turning away, walking into someone else's arms. I try to run after her, but my feet sink into the sand, like it's swallowing me whole. I wake to the sound of a car door shutting. Morning light streams through the blinds. My heart leaps into my throat. Maybe Grace came back. But when I stumble to the window, I see a neighbor unloading groceries. No sign of Grace. No sign of redemption. Sighing, I grab my phone. A voicemail from my boss, a few missed calls. I delete them without even listening. Today, I decide, the world can wait. By mid-morning, I've managed to shower and dress. I stand in front of the bathroom mirror, looking at the reflection of a 42-year-old man with hazel eyes and thinning dark brown hair. My jaw is clenched so tight it hurts. I try forcing a laugh, just to see if I still can. But the sound that comes out is hollow. My phone pings, a text from Grace. Grace, I'll come by in the afternoon to talk. Is that okay? A million responses jump to mind, but I simply type, yes. I have no appetite, but coffee I need. So I pour myself a cup, let it go cold, then pour a second. I check the time. 11:00 a.m. The kids are still at my mother's. She's been texting me about dinner plans. I told her I had some work emergency that I'd pick up the kids later. That's my way of stalling, not ready to face them, not ready to break the facade that Dad has everything under control. Sitting at the kitchen table, I open my laptop and try to distract myself with meaningless tasks, paying bills, checking the news. But every time I see Grace's name pop up in an email or a saved contact, my stomach twists. Finally, I close the laptop and look at the time. Still hours to go before she arrives. I remember her telling me about Ethan's photography studio downtown. The street name was mentioned in one of those receipts I found. Some artsy district, ironically close to where we used to have Sunday brunch. I glance at my car keys. 30 minutes later, I'm on the highway. Why am I doing this? Because I have to see it for myself. I have to see the place, maybe talk to him if he's there. My mind crackles with that black humor again. Maybe you'll ask him for some tips on how to treat a woman. I grip the steering wheel until my knuckles whiten. The playlist Grace created, that cursed nighttime selection, starts up in my Bluetooth. I almost shut it off, but I let it play. The songs echo with regret, longing, secrets. I drive faster, weaving through traffic. Downtown La greets me with its usual chaos. I park near a graffiti-splashed wall, the sun reflecting off skyscraper windows. The address from the receipt leads me to a modest brick building with a sign reading Walter Scott's Photography in clean, modern letters. Inside, a small lobby with a few framed photos on the walls, black and white portraits, beach landscapes at sunrise, couples smiling in wedding attire. A slender woman with dyed pink hair sits at a desk, tapping away at a laptop. She looks up. Can I help you? I clear my throat, nerves twisting inside me. Is Ethan Walters here? She tilts her head. He's teaching at the moment. Intro to photography class over at the community college. He should be back around 2. My gaze drifts to the photos on the walls. One wedding photo in particular catches my eye. Maybe it's the lighting, or maybe it's the expression of raw joy on the couple's faces. I feel a pang, remembering my own wedding day. The receptionist follows my gaze. Ethan took that shot in Santa Monica. He's got a real gift for capturing emotion, you know. My jaw tightens. Oh, I bet he does. I nod, mutter a polite thanks, and leave. Outside, I stand on the sidewalk, cars whizzing by, horns blaring. I stare at the building, half tempted to wait until he shows up. But then I remember Grace is coming home soon, and I'd rather face her than tear open this wound in a public confrontation. So I head back to my car, ignoring the churn in my stomach. When I return, Grace's car is already parked in our driveway. My pulse quickens. I park on the street, take a moment to collect myself. Then I walk inside. She's in the living room, fiddling with her phone. She looks up, eyes red-rimmed. She's holding the same box from last night, but it's been resealed with different tape, this time packing tape. She must have added a few more items. Where were you? She asks softly. Running errands. I lie. She sets her phone aside, clasping her hands in her lap. Mark, about last night. I'm sorry I left so abruptly. I remain standing, a few feet away. You left so you wouldn't have to answer my questions. Let's not sugarcoat it. She nods, tears forming again. Yes, that's part of it. I move closer. You said you didn't regret it. Do you still feel that way this morning? Her gaze drops. I don't know what I feel. I let out a humorless chuckle. Is that the best you can do? She bristles slightly. I know you're hurting, and you want me to say something that'll fix this, but I can't lie, Mark. I can't say I regret every moment with Ethan. There were times. She pauses, voice trembling. Times I felt more alive than I have in years. The words slice deep. Alive. She presses her lips together. But I also feel ashamed, guilty. And I hate myself for hurting you, for betraying our marriage vows. But I needed, God, I don't know, I needed something real. I tower over her, the tension in my shoulders so tight it's almost painful. And our life wasn't real. She closes her eyes. It was routine. Mark. You were slipping away into your job, into your computer. Our conversations were about bills, chores, the kids' homework. It felt like we were just co-managing a household. But Ethan, he listened, he asked about my thoughts. He made me laugh. I never intended for it to turn physical, but it did. And once that line was crossed, you didn't look back. I finish for her. She nods, tears falling. I rake a hand through my hair, struggling with an urge to break something. Instead, I just breathe, forcing calm. Where does that leave us? She looks up, eyes shining with desperation. I don't know. Part of me wants to end this marriage, to set you free, to set myself free. And another part of me can't imagine life without you and the kids. I feel a wave of bitterness. So your solution is to keep me in limbo, while you figure out your feelings about your boyfriend. Her face crumples. He's not my boyfriend. I laugh. A harsh bark. Could have fooled me. Silence. She stands, stepping closer, close enough that I can smell her floral shampoo. I step back. The memory of her body with someone else's is too fresh, too raw. Mark, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. I need you to say something. Do you want me to go? I swallow a spike of rage. I want you to stay away until you decide if you want to be my wife or his mistress, because I won't live with half measures. She closes her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. That's fair. I realize I'm shaking. If you want a divorce, say it, but don't leave me hanging. She lets out a sob, then slaps a hand over her mouth as if to stifle it. I'm stunned by the rawness of it. Grace has always been the calmer of us, the one who soothes the kids when they're upset. Now she's the one who needs soothing, but I have nothing left to give. Finally, she looks at me and says, "I'll go. I'll stay somewhere else for a few days. Then we can decide." I nod stiffly. Fine. She picks up the taped box, pressing it to her chest like a lifeline, then heads for the door. As she passes, she stops, sets the box down for a moment, and looks up at me with puffy, tear-filled eyes. "I'm so sorry." I stare at her, my voice coming out colder than I intend. Not sorry enough to regret it. She flinches. Then she picks the box back up and slips out the door. I stand in the empty living room, hating how silent and hollow it is. A part of me wants to run after her, hold her, and fight for what we had. Another part of me wants to burn every memory we created. The next few days pass in a haze of phone calls and text messages. Grace periodically checks in about the kids who remain at my mother's. She's staying at some friend's place. Whenever I ask which friend, she just changes the subject. I suspect she's with Ethan, but I can't bring myself to confirm it. I bury myself in errands, chores, anything to keep from thinking. One evening, I open the closet, see Grace's clothes still hanging there, and nearly rip them all down. Instead, I slam the closet door and walk away, refusing to let the anger consume me. Then, on a Wednesday, I get a text from Grace, asking if she can see the kids this weekend. We arrange a time, a place. I'll bring them to a park near my mother's house, and she'll meet us there. I wonder if she'll show up with Ethan in tow. Saturday arrives. The sun beats down at the local park. I watch my kids chase each other around the playground. Their laughter stabs me with guilt because I know I'm about to uproot their lives. They don't know it yet, but something fundamental has shifted in our family. Grace arrives, wearing a sundress that flutters in the breeze. She looks anxious, scanning the park until she spots me. Our eyes lock, and for a moment, I see the flicker of sorrow in her expression. Then she forces a small smile and walks toward the kids. "Mommy," they shout, running to her. She kneels down, hugs them tight, tears forming in her eyes. I stand back, letting them have their moment. After a few minutes, she coaxes them onto the swings, pushing them gently. I join her, and for a split second, it looks like a normal family scene, Mom and Dad at the playground with their children. But an invisible wall stands between us. "How have they been?" she asks softly. I shrug, voice guarded, confused. "They miss you." She looks pained. "I miss them." An awkward pause. The kids yell for us to push them higher, so we do. Grace wipes away a stray tear, trying to smile for them. Finally, she gestures for me to follow her to a nearby bench while the kids keep playing. We sit down, leaving the gap between us. "Mark," she begins, "we can't keep them in the dark forever. We need to decide how we're going to handle this. Have you decided if you want to stay married?" I ask bluntly. She fidgets with her hands. "I don't know." I let out a frustrated sigh. "Then what do you suggest?" She hesitates. "Therapy, maybe. Or a separation. Something to let us figure out what we really want." My anger flares. "Don't you mean who you really want?" Her expression crumples. She dropped her gaze. I exhale, forcing a calmer tone. "Look, I'll do therapy if that's what it takes, but you have to cut things off with him completely. If you want any chance of saving us, you end it with Ethan Walters. No phone calls, no texts, nothing." She stares at me, tears brimming. I see her jaw move, almost as if she's about to argue. Then she nods, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Okay." I close my eyes, relief and dread mingling in my chest. "All right. That's the first step." She sniffs, wiping her cheeks. The kids are still playing, oblivious. I can't help but feel my heart clench at the thought of how happy they look. "I'll do it," she says quietly, "but I can't promise how I'll feel afterward. Is that fair?" I stare at her, numb. Nothing's fair anymore. But it's a start. She nods, and we stand. The kids see us and run over, demanding drinks from the cooler. We spend a tense half-hour making small talk, pretending for the kids. Then, as afternoon turns to evening, Grace finally leaves, hugging them tight one last time. I watch her walk away, her posture stiff. She moves back into the house the following week. I lay ground rules: separate bedrooms, therapy sessions twice a week, and no contact with Ethan Walters. She agrees, though I sense her reluctance. We schedule a meeting with a marriage counselor named Dr. Hoffman, a middle-aged woman who tries to get us to open up. At night, I lie awake in the guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Grace sleeps in our old bed, or at least tries to. Sometimes I hear her pacing, crying softly, or rummaging in the kitchen for a glass of water. The kids wonder why Mom and Dad aren't sleeping in the same room, and we fumble through half-truths about Dad snoring too loudly, or the bed being too cramped. It's a farce, but it's the only way I know to keep us under one roof while we decide if we even have a future. Through the therapy sessions, Dr. Hoffman gently prods. She asks about my childhood, my father's stoicism, my inability to express vulnerability. She asks Grace about her need for emotional connection and attention. We talk about the silent distance that grew between us, about unspoken resentments. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, we drive home in stony silence. The kids are at a friend's sleepover, so we have the house to ourselves. As soon as we walk in, Grace heads for the kitchen. I follow, watching her fill a glass with water. She sets the glass down and turns, looking at me with a trembling expression. "Mark." I wait, uncertain. She draws in a shaky breath. "I ended it with Ethan. I swear to you." I lean against the counter, crossing my arms. "When?" She looks down. "A few days ago, on the phone." He was upset, but he understood. My chest tightens. "He just let you walk away." She shrugs. "He said if it's what I truly wanted, he wouldn't stop me." A wave of relief and anger washes over me. Relief that she kept her promise. Anger because she clearly had to wrestle with the decision. I stare at the fridge, the magnets, the pictures of the kids. I don't speak. She steps closer, voice trembling. "Mark, say something. Please." I turn to face her. "I don't know what to say, Grace Daniels." "You want me to thank you for cutting off your affair." Her face falls. "I'm just trying to do what the therapist said. Show you I'm serious about fixing this." My mouth twists. "So you are serious?" She nods, tears forming. "Yes." A flicker of hope stirs in me, but it's buried under layers of doubt and anger. I run a hand through my thinning hair, exhaling slowly. "I can't pretend I'm suddenly okay. I can't trust you overnight." She nods, tears slipping down. "I know." I stare at her, the woman I've called my wife for over a decade, the mother of my children, the one who said she doesn't regret her affair. I wonder if I'll ever be able to touch her again without imagining him. She steps even closer, so close I can smell her perfume, that subtle floral hint. I steel myself. "Don't." I murmur. She hesitates, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispers. And then I do something unexpected. I pull her into a hug. Not a passionate or romantic one, but a desperate, clinging embrace. She sobs against my chest, and I hold her, not sure if it's out of love or fear, or some twisted mix of both. I feel her shoulders shaking, and I let out a ragged breath, resisting the urge to cry myself. Because, of course, men don't cry. But inside, I'm splitting at the seams. Over the next few weeks, we continue therapy. We learn how to talk without screaming or throwing accusations. Some sessions are calmer. Others are brutal. One day, Dr. Hoffman asks me directly, "Mark, do you still love Grace?" I feel a lump in my throat. I cast a glance at Grace, who's sitting with her hands folded, tears welling up. And I say, "Yes." But I can't trust her. Dr. Hoffman nods thoughtfully. Then she turns to Grace. "Grace, Do you still love Mark? Grace's voice trembles as she answers, yes. But I don't know if he'll ever forgive me. That's the impasse we're at. Love without trust, yearning without forgiveness. At home, life becomes a tense routine. We share meals, we handle the kids' schedules, we sleep in separate rooms. Some nights, we talk in whispers after the kids go to bed, trying to rebuild the threads that once held us together. Other nights, we retreat to our separate corners, suffocating in the silence. During one of these quieter evenings, the kids are asleep, and I'm on the couch, flipping through an old photo album. Grace walks in and sits beside me, careful to keep a small distance between us. She gently touches a photo of the two of us from our honeymoon, Hawaii, 15 years ago. We look impossibly young and carefree. She closes her eyes, and a tear slips down her cheek. I miss us, she whispers. My chest tightens. So do I. We fall silent. Then she takes a breath. I've been thinking a lot about what you said that day. About men not crying. About how your father taught you to bury everything. She sighs. That's not healthy, Mark. You can't keep it inside. A weak smile tugs at my lips. I'm doing the best I can. She nods, resting her hand near mine on the couch cushion. I know. But maybe, if you could let it out, maybe we could begin to heal. I turn my gaze to the window. The night sky is clear, a few stars visible. I don't answer, but a part of me knows she's right. Time passes in a blur. The therapy sessions continue. Some small progress is made. We start talking about deeper things, about regrets and fears. She confesses that she felt invisible, that she grew resentful of my long work hours and my emotional unavailability. I confess I felt inadequate, torn between the demands of fatherhood and the pressure to provide financially, and ashamed that I couldn't make her happy. But always, the affair looms like a shadow. I can't banish the image of her with Ethan Walters, and some nights, it keeps me awake, gnawing at my sanity. In mid-September, about 6 weeks after she moved back in, we have a particularly vicious argument. It starts small, about her picking the kids up late from school, but escalates into a shouting match about our marriage. We hurl accusations, I slam the door, she storms off to the bedroom. The kids cry in confusion. That night, as I lie awake, I decide something needs to change. I can't keep living like this, constantly on the edge of meltdown. If we're going to rebuild, I need closure, and I need some measure of justice. The next morning, while Grace is at work, I make a decision that feels both reckless and necessary. I drive to Ethan Walters' photography studio. He's there this time, sitting behind a desk in a small back office. He looks up when I enter, confusion clouding his blue eyes. He's lean, hair tousled, wearing a casual button-down and jeans, probably the same style he had when he was with my wife. Ethan Walters. I ask, voice tight. He rises slowly. Yes. I step inside, close the door behind me. My heart is hammering. I fight the urge to deck him right here and now. I'm Mark Daniels, Grace's husband. He swallows, color draining from his face. Look, man. I hold up a hand. Don't you dare apologize. He closes his mouth, fidgeting. What do you want? I let a silence linger, letting him squirm. Then I speak quietly, each word measured. I want you to know what you did. I want you to see the man you betrayed. And I want you to look me in the eyes and tell me why. He stammers. I didn't set out to hurt anybody. Grace, she was unhappy. She told me she felt alone. I just wanted to be there for her, and it escalated. I clench my jaw. Escalated, huh? He rubs the back of his neck, looking genuinely uncomfortable. I never meant for it to become a long-term thing. I cared about her. A lot. But she told me she was still deciding if she'd leave you or not. A flicker of rage ignites in my gut. But you didn't back off. He lifts his hands in a helpless gesture. I couldn't. I guess I fell for her too. I stare at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, and it just makes me angrier. This is the man who gave my wife an escape from our marriage, who apparently brought color back into her life, who might have stolen her love. I step closer, fists twitching. Do you understand what you did to me? To my family? He lowers his head, voice trembling. I do, and I'm sorry. I really am. A bitter laugh escapes me. You're sorry. He tries to meet my gaze. Grace ended it. I'm not reaching out to her anymore. I swear, if you two can work things out, I won't stand in the way. I stand there, fists clenched, wanting to lash out, to break something, to break him. But I notice the fear in his eyes, the quiet resignation. He's no fearless Casanova. He's just a flawed man who stepped into an affair with a lonely woman. And for a moment, I realize that maybe I'm not the only one who's broken. It doesn't make me forgive him, but it deflates some of my raw fury. You stay away from her, I say, voice low. No calls, no messages, nothing. If I catch wind that you so much as text her, I will make your life a living hell. Do you understand? He nods quickly, swallowing hard. Yes, I understand. I step back, exhaling a shaky breath. I look around his office. Photos of smiling couples, scenic beaches. My mind floods with images of Grace and him, pressed together by the ocean. This is over, I say, half to him, half to myself. I turn and walk out, leaving him standing there with the weight of my ultimatum. Driving back, I feel an odd mixture of triumph and emptiness. Confronting him was a release of sorts, a way to prove to myself that I'm not powerless. Yet it doesn't undo the betrayal, doesn't wipe away the memory of Grace moaning his name. My mind conjures that image even though I never saw it. I can't help imagining how they were together. By the time I arrive home, the sun is dipping below the horizon. Grace is in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta. She looks up, startled, when I walk in, my face still flushed with adrenaline. Mark, are you okay? I toss my keys on the counter, not answering immediately. I just stare at her, noticing how she nervously chews her lower lip. Finally, I say, I went to see him. Her hand trembles on the wooden spoon. You went to see Ethan? Yes. She sets the spoon down, turning off the burner. Why? Because I needed to look him in the eye. I needed to tell him to stay away. She exhales, glancing at the floor. What did he say? That he's done. He won't contact you. She nods, eyes shiny with tears. I'm glad. I'm sure it was uncomfortable for both of you. I let out a humorless laugh. Uncomfortable. That's one word for it. She moves closer, tentatively. Mark, I know this is hard. I know you're trying. I shake my head, stepping away from her. Trying. That's all I do. Try. Meanwhile, you had your fling and you're not sure if you regret it. She starts to speak, but I hold up a hand. Enough. I did what I needed to do. Now you figure out if you still want to be here or not, because I can't keep living on the razor's edge of your indecision. Tears spill down her cheeks. She covers her mouth with her hand, stifling a sob. I do want to be here. I'm just. Don't say confused. I cut in, voice shaking. I've heard it too many times. I can't do this half-baked anymore. Grace Daniels, I need you all in, or not at all. She chokes back a sob, nodding. Okay. Okay, what? She meets my gaze, chest rising and falling rapidly. I'm in. I'm here, Mark. I won't see him. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust. Silence throbs in the kitchen. I hear the faint hiss of the stove as it cools. Then I let out a long, trembling breath. Slowly, I approach her and place a hand on her shoulder. Grace, you broke us. She nods miserably. I know. Then help me figure out how to fix us. She looks up, tears in her eyes, but also a glimmer of determination. Yes, she whispers. From that day forward, something shifts. We engage more honestly in therapy. We talk late into the night, hashing out old wounds and fears. She stops wearing the necklace Ethan gave her, that small gold chain with a wave pendant, replacing it with the simple heart pendant she used to wear. Bit by bit, she tries to show me she's done with him. And bit by bit, I let the anger drain, replaced by cautious hope. I still have nightmares, still wrestle with images of them together, but I no longer see everything in red. We decide to attempt date nights again. The first time we go out is awkward. We eat at a small Italian restaurant, sitting across from each other like strangers on a blind date, feeling each other out. She orders a glass of wine, I stick to water. The conversation starts with trivialities: work, kids, the weather. Then she places her hand on mine, her eyes sincere, and says, "I'm sorry for everything." I stare at her. "Do you regret it now?" She blinks, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. "I regret the pain I caused. I regret betraying you and the kids, but I can't erase the fact that I felt something real with him. I'm sorry." My hand tenses under hers, but I don't pull away. "Okay," I whisper, not sure if that's acceptance or resignation. That night, I walk her to her bedroom door like a polite escort. We linger there, uncertain. She reaches up to touch my cheek, but I gently capture her hand and press it to my chest instead. She feels my heartbeat, strong and steady, but I can't invite her in yet. Not while the bed in that room still conjures images of betrayal. She seems to understand. She slips into her room, and I go to mine. We drift in this limbo for another month, gradually building trust. Dr. Hoffman says we're making progress, though we still have a long way to go. The kids sense things are better. They see us talking more, occasionally laughing. One evening, as winter approaches, Grace and I are watching a movie in the living room. The kids asleep upstairs. The tension has eased a bit. We've grown comfortable sitting together again, though we keep a cushion of distance. Sometime around midnight, she rises to go to bed, and I follow her up the stairs. At the landing, she turns, looking at me with a mixture of longing and uncertainty. "Mark, I miss you," she says. I swallow, my voice coming out rough. "I miss you too." She reaches for my hand. "Come with me." My heart pounds. I hesitate, memories of her infidelity warring with my desire for intimacy. Then I nod. In the bedroom, she switches on a lamp, casting a soft glow. We stand by the foot of the bed, awkwardly. This is where she slept with him. A voice inside me hisses, but I push it aside. She's trembling, her eyes full of tears. Slowly, we move closer. She places her hands on my chest, and I rest mine on her hips. We just stand there, breathing each other in. Then I lean down, brushing my lips against hers. The kiss is tentative at first, both of us afraid to break the fragile peace. Then emotion surges, the hurt, the longing, the anger, the longing again. My hands slide up her back, pulling her closer. She gives a soft gasp, pressing against me. For a moment, we lose ourselves in each other, remembering a time before everything shattered. The erotic undercurrent is there, but it's also tangled in pain. I guide her onto the bed. She clings to me, tears slipping from her eyes. We don't speak. We communicate with hesitant touches, searching kisses, trying to see if we can find what we lost. And for a moment, I believe we might. When it's over, we lie there, breathing in the dark. She nestles her head on my shoulder, voice quivering. "I'm sorry," she whispers. I hold her close, my own tears threatening to spill. My mind drifts to that unspoken code. Men don't cry. But tonight, it's too much. A single tear escapes. I feel it track down my cheek. She senses it, because she touches my face. I don't push her hand away. Maybe that's the real step forward. That I'm letting myself feel this pain, letting her see it, and not hiding behind anger or numbness. In the weeks that follow, we navigate fragile territory. We share a bed again, though it still feels haunted. We have ups and downs. One night we'll reconnect with gentle affection. The next night, I'm haunted by images of her and Ethan, and I push her away. She tries to be patient, reminding me that she's here now, that she ended it, that she's committed to us. Our therapy sessions shift focus from the betrayal to the deeper issues that led us there. Dr. Hoffman urges us to keep communicating. Grace starts leaving me little notes around the house. A simple "thank you for picking up groceries," or "I appreciate you" tucked under my coffee mug. I start taking small breaks from work to join her for lunch, actually listening when she talks about her day. It's not perfect. Some days are hell. But a flicker of hope burns. Time marches on. Christmas approaches, and we put on a show of unity for the kids, decorating the tree, singing carols. There's a moment on Christmas Eve when Grace and I sit by the fire, the kids in bed, silent snow drifting past the window. She leans her head on my shoulder, and for a moment, it feels peaceful. Later that night, as I lie awake, I imagine the shape of the future. Can I truly forgive her? Can we build a new foundation on the rubble of broken trust? Sometimes the answer feels like yes. Other times, I'm not so sure. One frigid January evening, I drive home from work, mind dulled by a stressful day. Snow piles along the edges of the roads. My phone pings with a text from Grace. "Grace, home early tonight, making your favorite soup. Hurry." A wave of warmth spills through me. Maybe this is how we heal, slowly, with small gestures of kindness. But the moment I pull into the driveway, something feels off. Grace's car is there, but as I approach the front door, I notice it's ajar. My pulse spikes. The house is dark, except for a soft glow in the living room. "Grace." I call out, stepping inside, heart pounding. No answer. I move through the foyer into the living room. She's there, standing by the fireplace, phone in hand, face pale. She turns when she hears me, and I see tears streaming down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" I demand, stepping forward. She holds out her phone with a trembling hand. "Ethan texted me." I clench my jaw. "What?" She sniffles, tears falling. I didn't reply, I swear. But he said he wants to see me again, that he can't stop thinking about me. My anger flares hot. "Give me that phone." She hesitates, but then hands it over. I read the text, my stomach twisting with fury. It's short. "I miss you. Can we talk?" My vision burns red. He promised he'd stay away. She wipes her tears. "I haven't contacted him, Mark. I don't know why he's doing this now." I stare at the phone, my heart pounding so loudly I can barely think. Then, in a sudden motion, I type back, "Leave us alone." I show it to Grace. She nods, weeping. I press send. Then I block his number, toss the phone onto the couch. She tries to reach for me, but I pull away. "Do you want him back?" I snap, voice raw. "Be honest." She shakes her head vehemently, tears flying. "No, I promise. I haven't even thought about him in that way. I'm trying to move forward with you, with our family." I run a shaky hand down my face, adrenaline buzzing in my veins. "Then why is he texting you now?" She shrugs helplessly. "I don't know. Maybe he's lonely, or he regretted letting me go so easily. That man's going to regret a lot more if he doesn't back off." I mutter. She collapses onto the couch, head in her hands, sobbing. I stand there, fists clenched, not sure whether to comfort her or storm out to find him. Finally, I sink onto the couch beside her, resting my hand lightly on her back. She looks up, eyes swollen with tears. "Mark, please believe me. I don't want him. I love you." I wrestle with a storm of emotions, that black humor creeping in again. "Here we go. Mark, you get to be the hero husband who forgives. Or the blind fool. Take your pick." But seeing her so broken, hearing her desperate plea, I choose to believe her. Maybe that makes me a fool, but so be it. I take her hand. "All right," I say, voice hoarse. "I believe you." She leans against me, crying softly, and I let her. That night, we don't speak much more. We just hold each other, hoping the crisis has passed. The next morning, I drop the kids at school and drive to Ethan's studio once again, ignoring the swirling doubt in my gut. The place is closed, locked. A sign on the door. Back at noon. I grit my teeth. I park in a nearby lot. Wait, fuming. It's cold, the wind biting through my jacket. I can't believe I'm here again. But I won't let him keep intruding on my life. Finally, around 12:30, he shows up, unlocking the door. I stride over, my footsteps echoing. He looks up, startled. "Mark," he says, voice tense. "What are you?" I don't let him finish. I shove him back against the wall inside the studio. He yells, eyes wide with fear. "You have a death wish." I hiss, pinning him by the shoulders. He struggles, breath quickening. "Mark, stop. I didn't mean. You promised you'd stay away." I growl. He holds up his hands in surrender. I just wanted to say goodbye properly. I made a mistake, all right. I slam him against the wall again, making the shelf of camera lenses rattle. "Listen to me, you piece of garbage. You don't contact Grace. You don't even think about her. If I see one more message, I will personally make sure you can't hold a camera again." He whimpers, nodding frantically. I'm sorry. I won't do it again, I promise." I'm breathing hard, adrenaline surging through every nerve. My fist itches to strike him, to land a blow that would release months of tension. He sees it in my eyes. Please," he stammers. "I won't text her again." For a second, I picture how satisfying it would be to feel my knuckles crack against his cheek. But then I remember my kids, remember that I'm trying to be a better man, not just a rage monster. I step back, releasing him. He almost falls to his knees, coughing and trembling. I glare at him. "Stay out of our lives. Got it?" He rubs his shoulder, nodding. "Yes." I swear. I'm done. I march out, slamming the door behind me. My hands shake, my throat tight. A swirl of emotions tangles in my chest. Relief, shame, exhaustion. This is what it's come to. Me physically threatening a man who had an affair with my wife. I get into my car and drive away, hoping this is the last time I ever have to see him. Later, when I get home, Grace is waiting, anxiety etched on her face. She sees my flushed cheeks, my trembling hands, and she knows. "You went to see him." I hang up my coat, avoiding her gaze. "He won't bother you again." She steps toward me. "Mark, oh my God, did you hurt him?" I set my jaw. "No, but I wanted to." She looks at me with tears in her eyes, then wraps her arms around me. For the first time in this entire nightmare, I let go of my pride. I bury my face in her shoulder, trembling. My breath shudders. She holds me tightly, whispering apologies, telling me it's okay. And then I finally let a few tears escape. Those tears I've been holding back since the moment I discovered her betrayal. I cry silently into her shoulder, my body shaking with months of pain and anger. She strokes my hair, not saying a word, just letting me release it. I don't know if that's forgiveness, or if it's just exhaustion, or if it's both. But in that moment I feel a tiny crack in the ice around my heart. In the weeks that follow, there are no more texts from Ethan, no more secret phone calls. Grace and I continue therapy. We talk more openly about everything. What went wrong, what we want going forward, what we're afraid of. I still wake up some mornings with a knot in my stomach, remembering her words. I don't regret it. But now she adds context. She doesn't regret that it forced us to confront our broken marriage. She regrets hurting me, but not the jolt that made her realize how far we drifted. It's a pill I force myself to swallow. Because maybe in her twisted logic, that regretless confession is part of her honesty. She's not trying to rewrite history or pretend it never happened. She's acknowledging the damage so we can fix it, if that's even possible. We decide to renew our vows, in a quiet ceremony, just for us and the kids, come springtime. It feels symbolic. A chance to start over, in a sense. The kids are thrilled, thinking it's a party for no reason. We let them believe it's just a fun family tradition. On the day of the vow renewal, we stand in the backyard under a simple arch decorated with a few white flowers. The late afternoon sun bathes us in a warm glow. Our children watch, giggling and clapping. As we hold hands, Grace wears a simple sundress, hair pinned up, eyes shining with tears. I wear a suit and try not to choke on the lump in my throat. We speak new words of commitment. We promise to communicate, to listen, to love. My voice cracks when I say, I forgive you, because I'm not entirely sure I do, not completely, not yet. But it's a vow to try. She places a small ring on my finger, a new band etched with the date of our renewal. I do the same for her. Then we kiss, softly, tears mingling. Our children cheer, not fully understanding but sensing the joy in the moment. When we pull apart, her eyes lock with mine. I see real gratitude there, real love. And for the first time in a long time, I feel a wave of something like peace. It's been a few months since that day. We're still working at it, day by day. Some mornings, I wake up and hold her, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, and I forget the betrayal for a few blissful moments. Other times, I see a stray memory, a photo from that beach trip we took years ago, and the bitterness resurfaces. Healing is not a straight line, but a jagged path. We haven't told the kids about the affair. Maybe we never will, unless they ask as adults. For now, we do our best to give them a stable, loving home. Grace has stopped working at the community center where she met Ethan. She found a new position assisting with children's programs in a different organization. Fresh start. As for Ethan, he remains a ghost from the past. I hope he's moved on with his life. I certainly have no desire to see him again. Sometimes, the black humor still tugs at my mind, mocking me. You nearly lost your mind over a man who was just as broken as you. But that's the truth, isn't it? We're all broken in our own ways. Grace was broken by loneliness. I was broken by pride and emotional distance. Ethan was broken by whatever emptiness led him to chase a married woman. In the end, I'm not sure if I'll ever fully trust Grace again the way I once did. But I know she's trying, every single day, to rebuild that trust. And I'm meeting her halfway. Maybe that's enough for now. Late one evening, I stand by the living room wall, gazing at the family photo once more. Me, Grace, the kids on a sunny beach. It's the same frame where she once hid those incriminating pictures of her affair. Now that cardboard backing is empty, no secrets left. At least none that we haven't already faced. She comes up behind me, wraps her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder. Hey, she murmurs. I reach down and squeeze her hand. Hey, we stand like that for a moment, breathing in unison. Outside, a car passes, headlights sweeping across the dark windows. Inside, the house is warm, quiet. I kiss her temple, and she smiles softly. Thank you, she whispers, for giving us another chance. My throat tightens. Don't waste it. She nods, lips curving into a sad, determined smile. I won't. The kids are asleep upstairs. The night is peaceful, and for once, my heart isn't pounding with suspicion or dread. I close my eyes, letting out a slow breath, and I allow myself to feel. There's still an ache, a bruise on my soul. But maybe real strength isn't about hiding that bruise. Maybe it's about letting it heal in the open. We turn away from the photo and head upstairs, hand in hand. Men don't cry, or so I was taught. But tonight my eyes are damp, and I don't mind. Because as much as it hurts, this is what it means to live, to love, to survive betrayal, and keep breathing. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but that's life. For now, I have my wife beside me, our children safe, and a fragile hope that maybe we can build something better out of the wreckage. And for the first time in a long time, as we climb into bed together, I believe that might just be possible.